For example, ether chat. Do you want me to? You
Yeah.
want to read
Yeah.
that in case we need to? Okay.
So, so my friends, welcome to our church history class. We've been offline for a while. We're back online again. I'm learning how to talk again since my bike accident. I just want to tell you about three things real quick. Number one, we hope that you'll listen on your radio to the people who are providing this for us, and that is their website is goldengems.net, and they play great music from the past, and so we hope that you listen to them. Secondly, we are preparing to go on three church history tours this fall, next year, 2021. One to England, we'll go in June. We'd like to invite you to sign for that. We'll go into the Deseret Grove in July. We're going to the Holy Land in October. And all three of those tours are almost full. I'm sure that they'll fill up today when I text me telling you about this. You can sign up for it. Be a great Christmas for people, etc. Thirdly, we I tested Christian history last time and put it online, and not many people watched it. More people watched the history of the church, so I feel like that's what you want. If you don't, you reply to the email last night today and tell me what you want. I want to do what you want, but it seems like more people are interested in the history of the church, so I'll do that today. So we'll start now with the third single refuge in the desert, also place in the desert, also known as Deseret. Can't get the mouse to work. There you go. Establishing Deseret. I need to get a drink, sorry. I'd like to thank my friends who are here to help me read in case I get going too fast or whatever. President Brigham Young, after arriving in the Great Salt Lake Valley, immediately signed different parties to explore the surrounding county. He basically this vast inland expanse of territory as a mighty inland empire. Now, the thing about it is nobody wanted to live here. The reason it was available is because nobody wanted to live in the Great Basin. Brigham Young saw in vision this vast inland empire of territory as a mighty inland empire that would someday grow. And he was right. He was a prophet. It happened. He saw the country that was reported to be so worthless, this area, Utah, Nevada, etc., as a mighty place of converted into beautiful towns and cities and farms, mills, and factories teeming with life, a veritable desert whose blossoming as a rose. Brigham Young saw this and he believed it was true, and he led the people to do it. Now, I just want to say a word about Brigham Young. I don't know, we've had a prophet quite like him. He was the president of the church for a long time, and he did so much for the church. I look forward to the day that I can thank him for all what he did. I'm so glad that he was a red personality. He was so tough on the people, but yet he led them to greatness. He really did. His followers were encouraged to stay here and build homes in the valleys and the mountains instead of journeying the gold rush to California. Why people would stay in the desert, the Great Basin, instead of going to California, the gold rush, is beyond me, except for faith. They had faith that Abraham was a prophet. They believed he was he was speaking the words of the Lord. Because of this vision and what resulted from it, Brigham Young was recognized as one of the greatest colonizers of all time, maybe the greatest of all time. He should be. He developed hundreds and hundreds of cities in the mountains west for us to live in. He named the region Deseret, which is a word from the book meaning honeybee. In Ether 2:3 it says the following.
And they did also carry with them Deseret, which by interpretation is a honeybee. And thus they did carry with them swarms of bees, and all manner of that which was upon the face of the land, seeds of every kind.
What's interesting is before the Mormons came to this place was called a desert. Brigham Young changed the name from desert to Deseret, and it stuck. He intended the new cells to be a hive of activity, people to be working all the time to get things going. The Saints were virtually the only white settlers in the Great Basin, and the name for the area about the size of Texas between the Rocky Mountains. It was a huge area. It can encompass what today is part of, well, part of Oregon, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Utah. So it was a very large place. On the east, they have the Sierra Valleys draining to the west, the Columbia River draining to the north, and the Colorado River draining to the south. So there's a lot of rivers draining into the valleys, but the valleys are pretty dry. The area was relatively isolated and arid and short in terms of game. There couldn't be a lot of game here because there was no trees here, so it's short on the things that sustain life. Saints realized that settling here would require considerable faith in their best efforts, but with God's help they could succeed. Wow, what a testimony these saints had to come here from. I don't know if you've been to England before, or to the Midwest, or to the Eastern Seaboard, but that place is covered with trees and it's beautiful all the time. And they come here to the desert and they think, God must want us to live here. Maybe we can make it work. And it's a story that's beyond belief almost. When they reached the Slave Valley in the summer of 1847, members of the Advance Company, quote, dedicated land to the Lord and commenced a systematic plan of exploration, trying to find something that could work. Parties were sent north, south, and west, with instructions to keep a lookout for areas with resources necessary for large-scale settlements. They go north and they find Logan, and they find Ogden, and they find Weber Valley. They go south and they don't find anything, and there's still nothing there. If you go south of Utah Valley, once you go past Nephi, there's not a lot there from there to St. George. But the Saints tried to make it work there, and that's the story we're gonna look at the next few days is how they tried to make those areas work, even though they couldn't work. By the end of 1847, church members had explored both the northern and southern routes to California, valleys of the Wasatch Mountains and the Cache Valley, Utah, Idaho on the border of San Bernardino in the south. So they explored everywhere. Now they did this by hand. They did it on foot. They did it with horses. This was not getting your car and that's right to Southern California. This was getting a horse and ride to Southern California. This was tough stuff. All this led them to believe that settling in the Slave Valley was the best choice. Cache Valley was too cold. It still is. Sorry to those of you who are from Logan. Utah Valley was inhabited by Indians and everywhere else was too dry. Now Utah Valley was very green and profitable, but it had that's where the Indians lived, of course, because they could make it. So they decided to settle there. Although the arid wasteland of the Great Basin would have been uninviting to pioneers from Midwestern Europe, the soil appeared to be fertile, and the valley plains were sufficiently broad to support a considerable population if the people lived here. So again, they're trying to find the positives. No one else wanted to live here, but it's flat, and there seems to be a lot of places to live. And the dirt seems to be able to grow things, just get water to it. Well, there was also a complete absence of trees, obviously. There was plenty of water for irrigation, for grass, for grazing. Like in the mountains, they start to think about how can we get this water from the mountains down into the valleys. And the Mormons are the beginners of the great irrigation system that's now become world famous worldwide. They are the ones that start this in these valleys. After organizing the efforts of the Advance Camp Party to consecrate their time and talents to build the initial infrastructure, roads, encampments, etc. Now again, maybe close attention to this. The Advance Party to consecrate their time and talents to build the initial infrastructure. These people see what they're doing as the work of God. You see, it's God's work. Brigham Young City Kimball left the valley and go back to winter quarters to report the leaders of those who are preparing the 16,000 persons who migrated to the basin in the succeeding years. So the leaders of the church are gonna leave the valley and go back to get the 16,000 saints that are in winter quarters, leaving the saints here to try to make a living. On the way to winter quarters, Brigham Young is coming meant 10 different companies traveling to the Great Basin. They're already on their way. There's a great joy in their union, and they had part of the big feast and then part of the waste. Um, I'm going to tell you these 10 companies were right now, and you probably can trace your ancestors to one of them. I hope these people were going to come out to this arid desert and try to make things work without water, without trees, without all the things they're used to. The companies are the following: the Brigham Young Company, the Mississippi Company, the Mormon Battalion. Those are the three we talked about so far. Now you've got the Dan Spencer Group. These are the new ones coming. Dan Spencer's Group coming. Harvey Patch 198 are coming. Abraham L. Smith's 139 are coming. Charles C. Rich's 130 are coming. George B. Wallace's 198 are coming. Edward Hunter's 155 are coming. Joseph Horn's 197 are coming. Joseph B. Noble's 171 are coming. And Willard Snow's 148 are coming. Those are the groups that are coming. So they're going to these people have already traveled across Iowa. They've already traveled from Nauvoo. They've already traveled. Well, most of them, many of them will come from England. So they've traveled from England to the eastern coast, there to Nauvoo, there to winter quarters, and then still got 1,000 miles to go to get to Utah across the plains. This is no small feat, my friends. This is tough stuff, like you see in the movies. Total of 2,095 people. Sorry, Jedi and Grant's group was also coming on, and they're going to make this trek alone. Crossing the plains is difficult for the families, even with weapons in the best conditions. The very best conditions were still tough. For example, just one example. I'm sorry to use this one, but it's a well-known one. Jedi Grant, he ends up being, he's in the 12 and he ends up being a counselor in the first presidency. Mayor. So like I said, he lost his wife and daughter to Colorado on the Seward River. Now, how could you keep going if you lost your wife and your children? How could you do it? He does it. He's only able to do this crew trial because of the Spirit of the Lord. He's able to lose his wife and daughter because of the Lord sustained his life. John Smith, Joe Smith Sr.'s older brother, and Charles C. Rich established a council and to direct the work in the valleys. $5,000 is generated by the Momentane was used to purchase Weber Valley livestock seeds, etc. $5,000 was a lot of money. If you take the money then, you times by 50, that's how much it's worth. So 5 times 50 is 250. This is $250,000. That's how they rated by that value. The important part to remember, though, is this is money that people had earned. The Momentane had earned it, and they just gave it away. They just gave it to the leaders of the church to buy the land. They're so willing to just give. Time, talents, money, health, etc. They build 450 log cabins. They plant 5,133 acres and a fence around the entire world to keep the livestock in. These people are hardworking people. While the first one was relatively mild, it was followed by an extremely wet, cold, and snowy spring. The saints did not expect this, and their flat side roofed cabins became leaky reservoirs of water. This is a picture of what Salt Lake. I shouldn't say Salt Lake City. It's a picture of what what should I call it? It's a picture of what the living quarters in Salt Lake City looked like. You see corrals for the animals. You see the houses line the walls. They're just trying to make it. They're just trying to live. The only thing they could do is dig sod out of the ground and put it because there weren't any trees, and so they're doing the best they can with what they've got. All these are the animals they had to fight with: mice, foxes, boars, etc. These are plagued with pests: wolves, foxes, and especially mice. One of the most valuable possessions in the forest had was a cat, believe it or not. When the late spring frosts killed much of the winter wheat and vegetables so arduously planted and cared for, starvation seemed imminent. Food was rationed, and each person was allowed only half a pound of flour each day. So we talk a lot about how we had ration food crossing the plains. And all these things are like they all got ration food. It's like too because the spring was so cold it killed all their crops. Saints went months without adequate food. Now you're a pioneer. So you come from Europe. You've crossed the Atlantic Ocean. You've got it set up in New York. You've come to Nauvoo. You find out the things are left there, coming to winter quarters. And now you've come to Utah. You've crossed halfway around the world on foot. And you get there and you're starving to death. Would you do the church? Would you stay faithful? What'd you do? We have a hard time if our heater breaks or our cooler breaks. We have a hard time if the water in our swimming pool gets dirty. These people are just trying to survive. They're just trying to live. And it's like every time they turn around, things are against them. It's just one trial after another. What would you do? Would you stand in church or would you leave it? These people stayed because they had faith in God. They had faith in the Savior. That's what they had faith in. And they didn't see the things around them as the Savior doing them. They didn't see things around them as happening. The Savior was still real. The starving saints subsisted for months by digging and eating slowly at the bulbs. They would dig these bulbs out of the ground and just eat the bulbs. That's how they'd stay alive for months. For months, that's how they stayed alive. The crops were not killed. The frost suffered a severe drought during the months of June and July, and then the crops would snap in August, and so they had a few crops that they survived. but they died during June and July because there's no water, and then in August, the little bit that they have been able to keep alive is eaten by crickets. My gosh, what's going on here? Yet the Saints continue to talk about California. As you can see, the Saints would start talking about that. Wait a minute, what are we doing here? Let's go to California. San Francisco Bay took 2 months to reach by wagon, and for some, selling out on another long journey sounded better than slowly starving to death. And so some do. Some head to California. Those who have less faith. As I think about this trial, I wonder what I would have done, what my family would have done, what they would have tried to do. In early June, crickets were still the running crops in Salt Lake Valley. We talk so much about the crickets. The crickets went on for years. It wasn't a one-time thing. It was for years thing. Many saints fasted and prayed for deliverance, but others were beginning to wonder if they should quit their work and live wagons and abandon the settlement. Let's get out. This is terrible. Despite their attempts to destroy the crickets, the saints were helpless until the arrival of the seagulls from the Great Lake Valley. We don't know this story, but the story goes like this. They had a pretty mild winter, terrible spring, crops die, terrible summer, more crops die, terrible August, more crops die. They pray for deliverance, they can't find it. Finally, the seagulls come. The seagulls are the state bird of Utah for a reason. They save the saints. They don't see the crops in their lives. They come and they just devour the crews. They ate them and threw them up, ate them and threw them up, ate them and threw them up as fast as they could. Nevertheless, the combination of disasters still discouraged many. A few of the colonists went to California. Others went to winter quarters and went back to winter quarters. When the partial harvest was reaped in July and August, the pioneers were so grateful for a substitute of green peas, roots, and berries, as opposed to celery bulbs and thistle bulbs. They held a special feast with prayer, music, dancing, and firing of cannon and chants of Hosanna. They were so grateful they had anything left after the terrible, terrible droughts and the seagulls. The remaining crops were nurtured and harvested in August. Great sheaves of wheat, barley, and rye were tied in bundles and hoisted high in the air for public display. Hey, we had something that survived. We had something that made it. Brigham Young and about 1,000 more saints arrived in late summer and fall, making the total numbers of the valley swell to about 3,000 people. There's 3,000 people in the valleys, and there's no food. Saints felt they finally found a place of safety and peace where they could build Zion. Now that is an interesting sentence. After all they've been through, after the terrible winter, spring, and summer, they, quote, felt they had finally found a safe place where they could build Zion. These were different kind of people, my friends. They lived for the Lord. They lived for the truth. Distribution of land. General distribution of residential farmlands began in the August of 1848. They started settling. They started dividing up the land for the people around. This picture here is a picture of a man who's been given a settlement. He's been given a place to raise his family. There's no trees, so they can't build their houses out of trees. He's going to build out of sod and a few logs that he could find, and they're just happy to be there. The distribution of these inheritances followed the law of stewardship, equal according to the circumstances, needs, and wants of the people. Under the direction of bishops, fences, ditches, and bridges were built. So, in the middle of their hard times, they're building up the valley to have a place to live. These people were amazing. They were more than amazing, my friends. The decision was made that there would be no private ownership of any water supply coming from the mountains. No one owns the water. The water belongs to the people. Although it took 3 years to learn the art of irrigation, which is a new art, they hadn't had to do it anywhere. Nowhere they'd come from, they had to do it. Saints became famous for their skill in making the desert blossom like a rose. This truly is a miracle. In fact, Saints' communal irrigation system, managed and operated under the direction of the bishops of the various wards, is seen as one of the pioneering efforts to apply the principles of the law of stewardship and consecration. No one owned the water. They're all using it for each other. They're all trying to help each other. It was a combined effort. Otherwise, it would have failed if left to private ownership management because somebody would have tried to get wealthy on it. What a selfless service. Dr. George Thomas, a professor at the University of Utah, the University of Utah, noted, the Latter-day Saint area system constitutes, quote, one of the greatest and most successful community cooperative undertakings in the history of America. History of America. It's true. The same principles applied for other things. The acquisition and allocation of timber, the direction of public works like the roads and the canals, even the construction of public buildings. They're doing everything together, working together for the common good. Despite these cooperative efforts, the biggest single challenge continued to be preventing hunger and want. People were still really hungry. They still wanted to survive. So how are you going to solve that problem, my friends? How are you going to make it so there's food to eat? They're working hard. They're living the laws of the gospel. They're living the law of consecration and stewardship, and they haven't been endowed. When I was working with the state president in Wyoming that is the first one that did the Pioneer Track, he told me that they discovered in their research that none of these people have been endowed. They all come from England. Most of them come from England or from Europe, and they bypassed the Nama Temple. Of course, wasn't working anymore. Going straight to Utah. So these people had not been endowed even, but yet they're living these laws of consecration and stewardship. Brigham Young strongly favored work relief over direct relief. What a prophet. Let's have people work for their relief instead of just get relief. Accordingly, where possible, work on public prices was found for the poor in exchange for church welfare. Let me just read that one more time. Where possible, work on public prices was found for the poor in exchange for church welfare. We'll help you out if you'll help us out. Most of the programs were planned and administered by the bishops of the various wards, and they required effort to get something in return. As they arrived in Utah, poor immigrants were distributed among the various wards and settlements, so that no bishop could have an undue burden of responsibility caring for the poor. So as the poor people arrived, they were divided out amongst the bishops, so the bishops had an equal number, and their responsibility was to put them to work. That's how they built this valley, my friends. They built the valley on the backs of the poor who were working for food. Public work activity was organized to provide employment, food, clothing, and firewood, so they'd get the public works done, and then in return they'd provide food, clothing, and firewood for the people. Church leaders also sought to increase the supply of available consumer goods, trying to get people to bring stuff in. Of course, all this was working against the severity of the winter of 1848-49, which was a terrible, terrible thing. So you have to ask yourself the question, why would the Lord allow the people to live in such dire straits, such a critical time? Why would he withhold food at a time that they're trying to build the valley? That's a good question. You think the Lord would provide them more food and more comforts when they're trying to build the valley. Instead, he withholds it. What's he trying to prove? He's trying to prove their hearts. Are they really devoted to the Lord? Are they really going to live the law of sacrifice and consecration? Are they really going to do it? That's what he's trying to do. As the winter wore on, the food problem became critical. There was no food for anyone to eat. A large portion of the people were having to satiate their hunger with rawhides, sago, and leaves, thistle roots. So there's anything they put in their mouth, they're putting it in to try to get food. Severity of the winter temperatures, the constant hunger, the poverty of the post-crossover harvest in the pole of California causes some states to question their decision to settle in the Great Basin. That's a stupid sentence. How true is that? The severity of the winter, constant hunger, poverty, post-crossover harvest, in the pole of California, the gold there requires some states to question what the heck are we doing here in this terrible place. The council 50 but regularly that winter to discuss needs of states in direct opposition to Congress. Maybe the government will help us. Maybe we can get help somehow. The territory they proposed covered much of the Great Basin and the portion of Southern California. A vast area that provided ample space for new settlements and they also support to aid the gathering. The saints called the proposed territory Deseret had the one to be symbol of because it was a symbol of hard work, industry, and cooperation. Unlike the milder winter of 1847-48, the harshness of 48-49 left many southern states hopeless in the future Deseret. Brigham Young prophesied, this is where the armies wrote. The saints are suffering. They're hungry. They're starving. Some of them are starving. They're cold. Brigham Young prophesied the colonies would cover the Great Basin. Thousands of migrants here all over the world. Here we will stay. Guess what? He was right. Our colonies do cover the Great Basin, and thousands of immigrated here from all over the world. Here we will stay. He was seeking out prophesied that within a year there would be prosperous and have all the food and goods they needed if they would just stick it out within a year. Now that year probably felt like a long time. A year's 365 days. It was very slowly. But the fact of the matter is, he prophesied they would happen. And guess what? It did. Well, a very few faced with the wagons and left. Most remained faithful and planted their seeds in the spring and said, you know what, we're going to try to make it work. We're going to stick it out. How wonderful these people for following the prophets. I'm so proud of them. They were so awesome. The prophets of God were vindicated. As the summer came, the weather was temperate. Harvest was plenty. There was more than enough food to feed the saints and those that were arriving new. The 1849 California Gold Rush provided economic boon to the saints in many, many ways. And so the saints stayed here and followed the prophets first, and then the 1849 came, and look what happened. Saints found gainful employment ferrying gold rushes across the Platte and Golden Rivers, fitting and maintaining the gold rushers' wagons and gear, purchasing or just plain collecting, abandoned kitchen utensils, furniture, appliances, clothing, books, tools, and large quantities of food. They would just dump it off on the side of the road. The good weather, bounteous harvest, and gold rush saved the lives and further helped them retain their hopes in establishing this place that they call Deseret. It's that desert. The most important question for all of us to ask is why the Latter-day Saints did not join the gold rush, considering their economic situation. Why would they stay in a desert where there's no food, no trees, nothing, when the rest of the United States of America is traveling through their land to get to the California coast to hit gold and become rich? Why would they stay? That's a really good question. The reaction of church members serves to illustrate the cohesiveness and social body and the strength of the kingdom concept. Let me read that one more time. The reaction of church members serves to illustrate the cohesiveness as a social body and the strength of the kingdom of God concept. Let's talk about that for a second. The First Presidency Council of 50 was the governing body and the religious body of the church. They governed the church politically and religiously, both. There was no separation of church and state. That didn't exist back then. This group made the laws, levied taxes, apportioned land, issued water and timber rights, established a cemetery, and imposed fines and punishments for criminal offenses. This group did the whole thing. When the U.S. won the Mexican War, all of Deseret was annexed by the United States. Oh, how depressing that was to us, to the saints. The provisional government of Deseret worked well until 1850 when Brigham served as governor. Other officers of state legislatures appointed among the brethren of the priesthood and ratified by the voters. So up until 1850, Brigham Young was the governor, and he was also the leader. And legislatures were appointed from among the brethren of the priesthood and ratified by the voters who were the members of the church. Davis, Weber, Utah, Cedar, and Twila Valleys were also explored and settled during these first 2 years, the first 2 years in Deseret. Lauren Farr, pictured here, was made state president of the Weber State and was the first mayor of Ogden. Fort Utah was established in Provo, named after the Indians that lived there, with very, very hard times. One after another. After one battle, the Indians were subdued. This said, the establishment of towns like Lehigh, Alpine, American Fork, Blizzard, Rose Spring, West Spaceworks, Salem, Santa Clara, Payson, and Utah County, where most of us live. You'll notice the pioneers made this way on purpose. Where one town ends and the other one starts, the saints can group together against any attacks if they need to and survive. San County was also colonized under the direction of Azimari, the current day Manti. Twila Valley was also colonized. As far as the spread parties went as far south as Utah's Dixie. Without air conditioning until 1965, it was hotter than heck down there. The rich harvest of 1849 and the economic boost of the gold rush, pioneers generated confidence for the church together. The 10,000 saints still in the Missouri Valley, the hundreds still scattered in branches throughout the United States, and the 30,000 members of the church in England. So you have a very small group here, 3,000. The majority still live east of here in winter quarters or somewhere in the United States, or else 30,000 live in England, where they've had the great missionary work occurred there. This church should have been the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in England first, if they just were just one of my numbers. But they weren't. They were by probably they probably lived in Utah. In the fall of 1849, the Brethren launched the Perpetual Immigration Fund, or the PEF, which allowed people to donate money so that people crossing the plains could have help. This purpose was to provide funds for the poor saints gathered in Iowa to make the trek west and also the rest of the way. Some $6,000 were raised that first fall. That is so much money. That's more than $250,000, my friends. And Bishop Henry was appointed as agent to outfit the numerous saints to get to Zion. So it wasn't just Brigham Young. Bishop Hunter's he's gonna have the responsibility to outfit numerous saints to get to Zion. Approximately 2,500 people immigrated to Deseret in 1950. Another 2,500 were aided in 1951. We have approximately 8,000 saints in Iowa, including those who gathered from the eastern branches, and thousands of British saints who come that far. So the saints are moving west, all of them, despite the challenges here in Salt Lake Valley. They're coming from England, they're coming from the Eastern United States, they're all coming here. Elders Ezra T. Benson, pictured at the top here, and Jediah Graham, pictured at the bottom. Appointed to Russell Hyde to evacuate the main saints in 1852. Let's get the saints evacuated from wherever they're at, whether they're winter quarters on the eastern coast or in England, and get them to Utah. To those remaining in the Missouri Valley, the First Presidency implored, "What are you doing for? Have you a good excuse for not coming?" No. Accordingly, 21 companies migrated to the Great Lakes in 1852, leaving only a few saints left behind in Iowa. So you have the majority of the saints come as asked by the president of the church, and they're living the life of consecration. They're doing the best they can. Oops. Um. Okay, what do we got? Where's our mouse? There we go. Found it. Oh, my friends, hang on a second. Sorry, gotta get the computer working here. Hit the wrong button. Wow, ha! There we go. International advertising. The responsibility of the gospel today was still that of the 12 apostles. 4 vacancies were filled by Lorenzo and Erastus Snow, Charles Rich, and Franklin Richards as people die or leave the church. Richards was sent to England and the leadership many more thousands joined the church in the West. He was the president of the church for many years, and many saints come west because of him. He was also responsible for the publication of the Pilgrim Price in 1851 as a missionary tract, though it would not be officially recognized as part of the Standard Works until 1880, which we'll talk about much later. To assist Latter-day Saints in Eastern United States and Europe together to the church headquarters in the West, the church inaugurated the PEF, the Perpetual Education Fund, in 1849. It is probable that before its demise in 1887, the immigrating company consisted of more than 30,000 individuals traveled to Utah. It helped them come. The PEF used church assets and private contributions to assist individuals commensurate to their inability to pay. With limited funds, fewer individuals could be assisted than wished to participate. Those receiving priority would include those whose relatives are friends as you treated the PEF, those who long membership in the church. So if you've been a member of the church for, say, 30 years, or for 10 years, or whatever, you had priority also if your family paid. In addition, individuals with skills what was needed in the West received top priority. So they were not blind here. They'd go to Europe and they'd find the people that had the tools they needed. They'd immigrate them first. In the spring of 1849, church leaders discussed ways of bringing companies of mechanics and artisans, specifically one were iron manufacturers, metal workers, textile manufacturers, and potters, looking for specific people with specific skills. Church missionaries and agents were requested to search out such persons and have them immigrate immediately in preference to anyone else, that a good foundation be laid against the time that the others of the poor shall go. 3 kinds of companies were organized then. Maybe this is TMI, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There was the PE companies, those financed by the Provincial Education Fund. There were the 10-pound companies who had 10 pounds of silver, uh, not poor enough to qualify for the PE funds, but able to travel the entire distance on 10 British pounds. That's quite a feat. And of course, you had the cash immigrant companies able to pay their own way. Most of the revenue of the PEF came from the donations who was already established in the patient, who already were barely making it themselves, but yet they had figured out a way to finance those who hadn't come yet. The most remarkable thing about these contributions, many of which were in kind, is the miraculous way they were transferred into cash supplies and equity for their immigration. So the saints talk about working together. Say, for example, you grow beets on your farm. You donate beets to the PEF. The PEF would figure out a way to sell the beets for cash, get the cash to the people coming across the plains in time to get here to make it. It was amazing. There were cost-cutting measures, including group contracting, doubling of families in wagons, organizing hammer companies, and were also adopted to make the available funds stretch as far as possible. We got to get the people west. The PEF assistance was always extended as a loan rather than as a gift. You understood to start with that you were getting a loan. It was to be paid back when you got to Utah. Deseret. Sponsored immigrants signed a note obligating themselves to repay the PEF as they were able. Though sometimes required many years to pay it off, some have later retired their full debt. Many paid the loans in cash, commodities, labor, anything they could do when they got here to help the saints. The ocean voyage was difficult but orderly. The most orderly was done by Latter-day Saints, by the way. PF agents would charter a vessel and notify applicants of departure date and time along with procedural instructions. So these PF agents, who are all nameless, right, serve full-time for the church at no cost to the church. There were some in England, there were some in other countries in the continents over there, and there were some in America. They would help the people along the way. The PF agent would appoint a president with 2 counselors to reside over the entire company on the boat, etc. Strict discipline prevailing during the entire voyage, with members arising at time doing chores, assembling for prayers, organizing choirs, concerts, dances, contests, and all types of entertainment. The measures taken by them, the leaders, to preserve order, decency, and cleanliness, made the Latter-day Saint company's favorites of ship's captains. Ship's captains loved the Latter-day Saints because they would get up on time, they would scrub the decks, they'd scrub the bottom of the boat, they'd keep it clean, they'd sing, they'd dance, they'd go to church. They were so different than other people that immigrating to the United States. The then journey of 1854 began a 7-mile journey up the Mississippi River to St. Louis. So they ended up coming to New York, but they would start by going south to St. Louis, and they would go up the river that way. From that point, they traveled another 500 miles to the Missouri River to Kingsville, where they were outfitted for the trip west. Kingsville is right next to winter quarters. At each point, the immigration they were met by an agent with chartered boats, purchased supplies, and provided for their well-being. It's not amazing, then, as we see, the Saints' trip across the West has been memorialized by Congress and by placing a statue of Brigham Young there, because the Saints came across the plains west in a very orderly, organized way, despite the fact they didn't have any money. It was an amazing feat. It was an amazing feat that they did this. When they arrived in Kingsville, their outfit had been purchased and was ready to go. Ideally, that was the case. The wagons and campers were ready to go. It consisted of a wagon, 2 oxen, 2 cows, a tent, and foodstuffs necessary for the 3-month journey to Salt Lake City. It's amazing. One of the greatest difficulties in route to Salt Lake City was crossing the various rivers and streams, so ferries were built and opened for such purpose and manned by the saints. They crossed, so they'd get to a certain river, and there'd be a Latter-day Saint there who'd build a bridge to get them across. In addition, regularly scheduled relief trains were sent with provisions, fresh teams, and spare equipment to come to catch them as they came across the plains. Under the direction of the presiding bishopric, immigrants were met with at the mouth of the canyon by President Brigham Young and some members of the 12, along with a large delegation of leading citizens and a brass band. So when you came into Utah, you were met by the prophet, the 12, a delegation of leading citizens and a brass band, and they played the band for you. It was everyone's favorite thing. Melons and cakes were distributed. Everyone singing and dancing. It was a wonderful thing. Yeah, they made it. They made it to Utah. As the company passed Temple Square, they saluted with firing cannons. After caring for their immediate needs, a meeting was held where they were placed in their homes of saints until they received their call to settle out in Sun Outlying region, which who knows where that's going to be. Over half the saints together to the Great Basin in the 9th century came from Great Britain. That's quite a feat. Almost half of them came from Great Britain. In addition, John Taylor to the Gospel to Germany and France, Russ Snow to Denmark, Lorenzo Snow to Italy, Party Prepared to Chile, and George Buchanan to the Hawaiian Islands. Party Prepared was also sent missionaries to China, Australia, and New Zealand. This is an amazing feat these people did. So we have a great debt of gratitude to them for what they did for us. Oh, Party Prepared also sent missionaries to China, Australia, and New Zealand. I like that. My friends, here we are at the end of this story of the beginning of the salvation of the saints in Utah. It's a wonderful story. I bear testimony that it's true, and I say it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.